guys, and welcome back to the Cruel Corner. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty corner for all things Formula E. So the Shanghai Grand Prix weekend has come to a close, and what could be said to finish off the weekend? Well, it was another good race, wasn't it? It wasn't as chaotic and dramatic this weekend as what we've seen in previous races, with the peloton getting a little bit silly. This weekend has had a few knocks and scrapes and bumps, but only one retirement in each race, which proves that the damage hasn't been that substantial like we've seen many a times this season. Wings getting folded underneath cars and having to make pit stops, and it's ruined a lot of drivers' races. We've had the odd pit stop here and there, and we have had just one retirement in each race, which means that in some aspects the racing was better because it was less contact hit and less drivers just getting thrown to the wayside for needless reasons, really. But yeah, overall, a good weekend and a great return to China. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their overall race weekend's performance. I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points. They're sometimes an offer for some drivers that do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion I do award minus points. Those drivers do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Cruel Corner standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. All the regular drivers have returned now. I forgot to mention that in yesterday's episode. But yes, all the regular drivers have now returned. So this is how it's going to be, hopefully, for the end of the season. We shall see. There's a lot of drivers tumbling down at the bottom of the order there that don't seem to be going to be clambering the way back up. And there's a fight out front in the Ollie Rowland, Nick Cassidy up there. Jake Dennis within the mix as well. Da Costa. It's all happening. It's all happening. And anything is possible on this series, as you're already aware. Now, before we kick things off with this video, I am just going to apologise because I've realised I used some notes in yesterday's video for the race today, and I've got it all mixed up between the two races. So I said in yesterday's episode De Vries qualified P4. He didn't. He qualified P4 here today in this episode. So yeah, apologise for those errors there. Hopefully this one will be better, but you know me, I'm always wrong at everything. So we'll just muddle through, shall we, as always, and we're going to kick things off with the race winner, of course, which is Antonio Felix da Costa. Fantastic to see him on here and on the top step. I really do have a soft spot for da Costa. I think the way he got treated at the start of the season was really badly by Porsche, and he might still not keep that seat anyway. And also the way he's been treated by the FIA with the bullshit penalties he always faces. The puncture he had at London last year that meant that he got disqualified because he didn't meet the pressures. Like, what a load of shit. You know, it was ridiculous. So, yeah, and then obviously the disqualified win. They are appealing again, Porsche, but can we ever see him win? He got that 5-second time penalty in yesterday's race, which I still haven't seen footage of why that 5-second time penalty was deserved. Believed to be contact with Verne. But this episode, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. He drove so well. He drove well in yesterday's race, but here he was impeccable. He stayed behind Nato for a number of laps, didn't he? And he harvested the energy that really, really counted while Nato was spending it up front. The peloton effect sort of broke away on around lap 20 with around 8 laps to go, which was a little bit earlier than what we saw in yesterday's race. And that meant that when da Costa went around the outside of Norman Nato at turn 1, he just put his foot down and went. And that was it. The peloton was going at that point, and he drove really, really well to manage the efficiency up until that point and then deploy the efficiency correctly to get himself to the end of the race with the energy he had left. And that was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, da Costa, what a fantastic drive this weekend. Well deserved. It's his third win this season, even though at the moment only 2 count. As mentioned, they're appealing. They're not going to win. We know they're not going to win. But Porsche have a right to appeal it. So for me, for Antonio Felix da Costa, it can be no other, can it? It's got to be a perfect 10 from me. Well done da Costa. I have got a soft spot for him. Has had a tough start to this season, but he has bounced back. We've seen so many drivers over the years have a tough start, not able to recover. Maxi Gunter did it last year after a tough start. Da Costa has done it after a tough start this year, and still gets shit thrown his way by the bullshit penalties that he's receiving, but keeps bouncing back, keeps his head up and keeps going. Well done, Antonio. 10 points to you. In second place, after securing pole position by 1,000th of a second, less than a blink of an eye, he's done it. He's done it. He's finally got a podium. It's Jake Hughes. It's Jake Hughes. Well done, Jake. Well done. I am chuffed for you, buddy. I really, really am. A long time coming, long overdue. I was saying in yesterday's episode how badly the McLarens are doing and how they must be asking questions of both their drivers now after Taylor Barnard comes in and delivers point scoring positions when the other drivers haven't been. Jake Hughes puts all that to bed, doesn't he, now, with a pole position by 1,000th of a second, picking up 3 points for that, of course, and in the race itself delivering a really smart, consistent race, staying within those podium positions and providing a good overtake on Norman Nato to secure that P2 in the end as well. Well done to him for that. Absolutely perfect, Jake. P2 on the road, a maiden podium. Fantastic. I'm really, really chuffed for him. He's getting 10 as well. He's getting 10 points as well. It's good to see Jake Hughes finally have a good race and long overdue, well deserved, and it puts a smile on all the McLaren squad's faces as well after what has been a tough season. It's been a tough season. Aside from Sam Bird's victory, Jake, it's not gone his way at all really this season, has it? A couple of good drives here and there, but obviously nothing on the podium until now. So yes, nice to see him finally secure a podium in Formula E when he needed it the most. He's done that. Let's hope he continues that form. And it's 10 points to Jake Hughes. And finishing in third place, we come to Norman Nato in the Andretti. Fantastic stuff. Well done, Norman Nato. His first podium of the season. His first podium in quite a while as well, isn't it, actually? Because I don't think he got a podium while he was with Nissan, unless I'm probably mistaken with that. And it has been a long, long time since this side of the Andretti camp has actually achieved a podium, isn't it? Because, I mean, you think last year they had Lotterer and he obviously did nothing, as we're all well aware. So yeah, it's been a long time coming for this. Probably 2022 at some point, early 22. I don't know, but either way, it's been a long, long time since that Andretti car has scored a podium. So at least that side of the garage have something to cheer about now. Well done. A feel-good story, this top three, I feel. You know, Da Costa, after the bullshit penalties is received, gets a win. Jake Hughes, maiden podium. Norman Nato, first podium for him for Andretti. And that first side of the garage's podium for about 3 years, maybe? 2-3 years? So yeah, absolutely crazy stuff. Norman Nato, congratulations to him. A great qualifying as well. Out-qualified his teammate Jake. Was in around the top 8 area, wasn't he? Was he about P7, I think he was? And the main race itself came good. Got himself up to the front. Led a lot of the race, which put his energy efficiency down compared to the other cars around him. But had enough energy that when the pack went and the peloton effect ended, although he was down on energy, he had enough energy to not have to substantially lift and close towards the end to maintain the position he was on. Just lost that position to Jake in the closing stages, but apart from that, it was perfect. It's 9.5 from me for Norman for that. Well done, great effort, good to see him up here. The only Andretti to score points this race as well. We'll come to Jake Dennis in a minute. And yeah, Norman, I was saying about how bad he was yesterday's race. He got a Lotterer of the week this time around. Absolutely flawless. Well done to him for that. 9.5 on the cruel room to him. Finishing in fourth place, we come to Nick Cassidy, another one that is always a bit strange when he's not on the podium, but finishing the race, P4, he'll be happy with that. He'll be happy. He got his front wing tupped, didn't he? He had a bit of damage on the front wing. Did he clip the back of Nato? He may well have done. But either way, it was unfortunate for him to have that. I think he was just playing it a little bit safe from there when he had the damage. He didn't want to, obviously, cause it to fall off and go underneath the car, as we mentioned at the start of the video. But Cassidy just had to pick up the points. Pascal Wehrlein had issues. He was outside the points. There was none of his main championship protagonists ahead. You know, these three ahead of him aren't championship contenders by any stretch of the imagination. And obviously everyone behind him were his championship rivals. So even though he wasn't picking up a podium or picking up a victory, P4 with 12 points on the board is still outscoring his main rivals, which is what he needs to do at this stage of the season. He doesn't have to go for glory, doesn't have to go for victory. He just has to pick up the points over his rivals, and that's exactly what he did. It's well done to Nick Cassidy for that, and it's going to be a solid 8. Solid 8. He knocked his wing, he damaged his wing. That could have been a little bit of turmoil there. Had that wing sustained any more damage or fallen off, he could have scored easily no points at all, and that would have been a huge blow to his championship chances, especially gaining points on the likes of Wehrlein that didn't score, Dennis that didn't score, Ollie Rowland only picking up a couple. You know, so it was good that the wing stayed intact, but that little bit of contact that was on him could have cost him badly. He's lucky it didn't. 8 points to Nick Cassidy. Finishing behind his teammate, it is Mitch Evans. Mitch Evans in the second of the Jaguars. Well done to him. Played a good team game this time around. No tiffing and taffing, no silly radio messages about hold, position, drive, don't drive. overtake, don't overtake, go for attack and all this lot. Seems to be a lot more calmer this race. Just let them do what they want to do, and they still work together even without instructions from the team. P4, P5, great effort, solid. They qualified themselves P5, P6, I think they did, didn't they? Or was it P4, P5? Either way, they was inside the qualifying top 10, well inside the top 10, and they were able to do what they wanted to do from that position. The only bit of disgruntled messaging that I've just remembered is Cassidy was told to hold position in the mid-pack there around that P6 area. He wanted to drop down like he did yesterday, but they obviously predicted the peloton effect would go sooner. It did, so maybe that did play out. Listen to the team on that one, Nick, and he did. So well done to him for that. But yeah, Mitch Evans overall, solid weekend. Can't say fairer than that. A victory and then a top 5 finish to round out the weekend is good. Puts himself back in championship contention. Even if as a borderline outsider, we've still got 4 rounds to go. We know how crazy Formula E is. We know you can pick 3 points up for a pole position. A fastest lap's a point as well. So every point he can get is crucial now. He is a bit of an outsider, but there is options and his opportunities. Let's see who Jaguar favour going into the remainder of the season. But you've got to think Cassidy has got his hand on that trophy with a 25-point lead now over his nearest rival. But all will be revealed. For Mitch Evans, I have gone for a solid 7.5. Certainly not as glorious as yesterday's effort, but still had to do the job he needed to do to secure points over his rivals. And he missed out only really on Nick Cassidy by a couple. So apart from that, fair play to him for that. And it's 7.5 to Mitch Evans. Next up, we come to Stoffel Vandoorne in the first of the DS Penske's, missing out by 1,000th of a second to that pole position. That was a shame, really, but one of those drivers deserved pole. One of them had to get it. 1,000th of a second. Like, that is crazy. That is crazy. So, yeah, unfortunately for Vandoorne, he misses out on picking up those 3 points for the pole position. And here he is ultimately finishing in P6, which isn't ideal. Again, another great front row start opportunity by the DS Penske squad. But just out-strategised, out-efficient-sized, is that a word? But, the other cars have better efficiency, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but overall, here they are. I was a little bit harsh on Verne yesterday with his score, I will admit that. But once again, it's just frustration. Vandoorne, I was frustrated with him yesterday. But today, did he do all he could? Well, when you look at the cars ahead, maybe, just maybe, you think, well, the McLaren up there's an anomaly, but everyone else above him, in theory, have the better powertrains, etc., and have the better pace, so should be up there. So for Vandoorne, I've given him a generous 8. Generous 8 to Stoffel Vandoorne. I'd bit of sympathy there that he missed out on the pole position by 1,000th of a second. That is absolutely crazy. Exciting qualifying. But yeah, 8 points to Vandoorne for me. I think he drove solid this race. Certainly made up for his deficit of last race. Finished ahead of his teammate. Out-qualified his teammate. Fair enough. And that's that. And behind his teammate, it is Jean-Eric Verne. There you go, 2x2, hurrah, hurrah. For Jean-Eric Verne, it's going to be short and sweet for me. It's going to be 7.5. I think that's fair. Just half a point less than his teammate. Was out-qualified, was out-raced by Vandoorne this race ultimately. And still comes home to pick up a good handful of points, a solid handful of points. But I'd just like to see DS Penske just that bit further up the field. They've invested massively in the team from where we were at the end of the Gen 2 era, where they were struggling to even finish races and they were getting lapped. I mean, it was embarrassing for them. The Gen 3 era, they've come in with a new driver lineup, Vandoorne and Verne, kept them for a couple of seasons now. And yeah, it looks like there is options there to go forward, but they just can't quite do it. They've got the one lap pace, but not the overall race efficiency. So do slip down the order a little bit when it doesn't always go their way. They're better when a safety car comes out, aren't they? They can manage their efficiency better after a safety car period. But yeah, ultimately for Jean-Eric Verne, it's 7.5 for him. A solid race, a great effort, well done, and overall a solid weekend in both the Cruel Corn Championship standings and the overall standings. It's just a shame they're not fighting for more. Securing 8th place and a handful of points after what feels like an eternity, it is Maxi Gunter. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. Crossed the line P9 yesterday, got a 10-second time penalty, and rightfully so, for taking out Eduardo Mortara. Here he is picking up 8th place and 4 points after what could only be described as a solid race, but nothing overly special or spectacular. What a shame that Max Gunter's season's taking a bit of a slump now, isn't it? I said at the start of the season, he started the season like he ended last year, which was really, really competitive, and let's hope he keeps it up. Berlin last year was the turning point for his season, from going like that and nosediving at 30,000 feet a second to going like that and really skyrocketing it. Berlin this time around picked up no points at all, 2 silly errors. This time around, first round in Shanghai, only crossing the line P9 anyway, which isn't that fantastic, and getting a penalty for silly contact. This race, no contact, no damage, but only P8. 4 points out of 4 races for Maxi Gunter after the start of the season he had is incredibly disappointing. Well outside the championship hunt now. I think he's something like, well, I think he's about 80 odd points behind Cassidy now. Such is the effect of how bad these last few races have been. So, yeah, unfortunately, Maxi Gunter, his title charge is over. I always thought he was going to be an outsider anyway, but I thought maybe he could have got to Portland, mathematically possible. At the very best, got to the first round at London, mathematically possible, before it was not possible then, but just had a really rough ride of it. Hopefully he can bounce back for the double header in Portland, because if he can't, is his life on the line in that sense? Not his life, his drive on the line, I should say. Bloody hell, his life on the line. Christ almighty, imagine. But yeah, I think overall for Maxi Gunter, I've scored him 6. A solid 6. He's not done brilliantly. He's not done badly. Overall, he's just done maybe what he could with the equipment he got this race, but disappointing not to see him higher up. A solid 6 to Maxi Gunter. Then we come to Robin Freitz in the first of the Envisions. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. He's picked up some points as well now for what feels like the first time in months. In fact, it will be months, won't it? It's been a long, long time. Robin Freitz qualified on the back row of the grid, didn't they? They were about 20th and 22nd. Nothing special or spectacular there. Elected to save energy immediately. You could see off the line from the aerial helicopter camera, like everyone pulled away, and then like the back 2 rows were like, no, I'm going to stay here a bit longer actually, and just, you know, tootle up to the back of you and save us energy. Worked out well for Robin, picks up a couple of points, long overdue points. Hallelujah, he's finally scored some. But again, nothing special. Shouldn't be that far down in qualifying. Recovers to score a couple of points. Fantastic, well done, he scored some points. But it shouldn't be worth praising, should it? We shouldn't be jumping up and down for the fact he scored a couple of points. This was the team that won the team's championship last year. And here they are, picking up an odd couple of points here and there, and we're celebrating it like it's a win. It's not good enough. It's 6 points to Robin Freitz. Well done to him for that, for picking up a couple of points and recovering the weekend after a poor qualifying. But it should be so much better. Should be so much better. They should be at minimum where the DS Penske's are every weekend, in particular Verne. But they're not. They're nowhere near. 6-2, Robin Freitz. Last of the point scorers, we come to Oliver Rowland in the Nissan. At least it's a point, but that race didn't really go Ollie Rowland's way at all, did it? It really didn't. Couldn't get his way through the pack. Got around that P10 area. Qualifying was okay, but nothing special. It was like that P14 area once again, wasn't it? Nissan seemed to have that off period as well with single lap pace, don't they? But yeah, ultimately got himself to P10 and then just stalled there and didn't make any further headway or progress, which is disappointing to say the least. But that's life, that's how it goes, isn't it? Ollie Rowland, I've scored him a middle 05. At least it's a point, but his championship chances after Nick Cassidy outscores him by 11, or Mitch Evans outscores him by 9. It does put a little bit of a dent to it, doesn't it? But at least it could have been worse. Nick Cassidy could have won the race, but I won't say the title's over for him, but it's looking more unlikely. This weekend, didn't get a podium after he's had such a long string of podiums. Maybe, just maybe, this is Nissan starting to falter towards the end of the season now. I hope we're wrong, and I hope it's not. And I hope Portland can bounce back and secure another victory, another podium, a pole position. It'd be great to see. But for now, it's just a Miller 05 to Ollie Rowland for picking up what could be a crucial point for his championship standings at the end of the season. But picking up 1 point overall isn't going to win you the championship overall, is it? Outside the points, we come to Jake Dennis finishing P11. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Championship chances in tatters now? I think it is, isn't it? Realistically, I think he's out. I think he's out of contention. He's on 103, is he? And the next car is Ollie Rowland on 113 or something like that anyway. So he's still 10 points behind the nearest rival now, and then he's almost 50 points behind Nick Cassidy. In fact, he might even be 50 points behind Nick Cassidy. It is a long, long way away with only 4 rounds to go. Be interesting to see what happens in Portland, but my God, if Andretti don't get this single lap qualifying pace, it's already looking unlikely for the title. But we get to Portland, I think it's going to be impossible if, Andretti once again at 15th and lower, for them to be able to do anything other than just pick up a few points. It's a shame. We've seen it many a time before with Andretti not having that single lap pace and costing the drivers, but also we've seen Dennis lose his head in certain circumstances. Berlin in particular, where he just went into a battering ram situation with Verline, which was just crazy. But, you know, it all adds up to a season at the end. It's looking unlikely that Dennis is going to retain his title chances. It's unlikely that Andretti or anyone else other than Jaguar, to be honest, are going to be lifting the team's trophy, but they've got to try. They've got to try. So yeah, Jake Dennis, unfortunately, it's a Miller 05 from me for him, because again, it's a tough weekend where points have gone begging quite rapidly, and looking like very much a big outsider now in the title hunt to retain his title as well. Shame. It looked like it was going to be possible at one stage, but now it's not. Miller 05 to Jake Dennis. Next up, it is Sebastian Buemi in the second of the Envisions. Again, like Robin Freins at the back of the grid, managed to recover to P12, but nothing special or spectacular there, is it? Robin Freins grabs a couple of points. Buemi doesn't. It's 4 points. 4 points to him for that. No idea what's happened to Envision. I'm going to keep saying it. No idea. Haven't got a clue. Don't really know why. But ultimately, what a shame. And it's 4 points to Sebastian Buemi. Then we come to the first of the Mahindras in Edoardo Mortara. Unfortunately for Edoardo, this weekend he has been shown up a little bit by Nick De Vries, who's come back revitalised after a week away and missing the Berlin doubleheader. He's sort of like reset his head. Perhaps the World Endurance has helped him do that, I don't know. But ultimately he's come back in and come in like a different man. Edoardo Mortara was out-qualified by him, and he was being outraced by Nick De Vries throughout. We'll come to Nick De Vries in a moment. But ultimately, Edoardo Mortara didn't look close to the points at any stage of this race, and in particular this weekend overall. And for Edoardo Mortara, it's a Miller 05 to him. Don't want to be too harsh on him. He was unlucky in yesterday's race, but again, not near the points. And this race only beat his teammate because of his other teammates' misfortunes. Once again, the luckless Mahindra squad, when points are possible, one car falls out of it. But the fact that De Vries was running inside the points and Mortara wasn't, bit of a shame. Miller 05 for Mortara. And that's that, I'm afraid. Next up, we come to Sasha Fenestraz. Another disappointing race for the second of the Nissans. No points this weekend overall. Yeah, don't really know what to say for Sasha. At least Ollie Rowland only picked up a point in this race. I don't think it's fair that I give him another lotterer. It was clear that the pace ramped up a lot more quickly this race, and maybe that's what caught the Nissan team out strategic-wise as opposed to the overall driver pace-wise. Rowland only picks up a point. Sasha Fenestraz a few places behind him. It's a shame. But it's 3 points for me for Fenestraz. Not a good race, not a good weekend overall. Coming out of that race weekend, not picking up any points again. It's a big, big blow to their title hopes for Nissan. I don't think they're going to win the championship overall, but they're very much in a fight with DS Penske and, of course, Andretti. You know, it's a close-fought thing, and there's a lot of prize money at stake there for finishing ahead. So, Fenestraz, get your ideas together. Get in the points in Portland as an absolute minimum. He needs to be inside the top 7, though, to impress me if Ollie Rowland's up there. So, yeah, it's 3 points to Sasha Fenestraz, and he can thank me for them. Next up, we come to the first of the App Cupras in Nico Muller. A difficult weekend for Nico this time around, and also a difficult weekend for Apt Cupra. Picking up one lucky point in the first race, courtesy of Lucas Di Grassi and the penalties that other drivers sustained in that race, post-race. And this race itself didn't look like they were anywhere close to points at any point in this race. Nico Muller, the best of the Apt Cupra cars, and yeah, it's a Miller 05 to him for that. Not been a great weekend overall by Nico Muller or App Cupra standards. It'd be nice to see him inside the points, mixing it around there, even if it doesn't come to fruition. We've seen a lot of fringes of points with Nico Muller this season. A lot of just scraping into the P10, P9 areas. They're closing in on ERT. I think there's only about a 3-point gap between those two in the team's championship. So, you know, it'd have been nice to see Apt a little bit further up there, particularly when ERT looked to be struggling substantially more than what they were at the start of the season. Yeah, they need to start getting some points on the board, and quickly. There's only 4 rounds left in a car that's unlikely to score points all the time. They need every opportunity to score points they can. The App Cupra was nowhere this race. 5-2, Nico Muller. And then we come to Nick de Vries. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So I apologise, I got it wrong, of course. He didn't qualify inside the top 4 for yesterday's race, but he certainly qualified inside the top 4 for today's race. This race, the second race, and he did a solid job with that qualifying effort. He drove really well in the race itself. You know, he was inside the mix, he was battling, he was fighting. He tumbled down the order quite quickly to around the 8th, 9th area, but obviously just looking to harvest and save energy and not wanting to lead like he did in yesterday's race. He's gone really well. He has gone really well, but unfortunately was wiped out by a wayward Sandbird, pirouetted into a spin and tumbled to the back of the grid, and unfortunately that was his race over with. Did really well to recover the situation, ended up pointing back onto the track and in a straight line, exactly where he needed to be. So he lost the least amount of time possible, but he was still pirouetted into a spin and sustained obviously damage from that, lost time, and plummeted from around that 10th, 11th area that he was racing in, where points could have been possible. But Sandbird absolutely blew it for him. So yeah, unfortunately for Nick de Vries, not the race he would have wanted, not the race that Mahindra would have wanted after such a great qualifying. Points were possible that race, points really were possible, and it went begging due to no fault of his own. So I'm awarding Nick de Vries 8 points. 8 points for that. Qualifying was absolutely superb. The race itself was fantastic, was going well, clearly meeting their targets and managing their energy to what they wanted. Maybe a point or two would have been possible by the end. That peloton effect did split. The go moment went earlier than yesterday's race, so that could have caught Mahindra out in terms of efficiency and maybe to slip back, but he wasn't given the opportunity, which is a shame. So it is 8 points to Nick de Vries. Next up, we come to Jahan Daravella in the second of the Maseratis, and it's short and sweet with him. It's 2 points. I'm giving him 2 points. That's all he's getting. We've seen nothing of him this race weekend overall. I think it'd be harsh to score him a lottery just based on poor pace and performance, because we have had an idiot on the track this race, and I feel he's the one that solely deserves it. You know who it is. You already know. But Jahan Daravella, another tough round. He's a rookie, I get that, but as mentioned in yesterday's race, we've seen progress from him all season long, and now it's like we've dropped down again. It's like Shanghai has forgotten how to drive a Formula E car and make progress up the field because he was just at the back all the time, which is a great shame. Unfortunately for Jahan Daravella, it is just 2 points on the board to him, and yeah, it's not been a good weekend, has it? Next up, it is Sergio Sette Camara in the first of the ERTs, the ERTs. And unfortunately for him, again, as mentioned in yesterday's race, the ERT just looks to have totally gone off the boil now. No efficiency, no pace, no nothing. Can't do anything special in qualifying and try and hang on. You know, they're just qualifying at the back and they're staying at the back. And even when they're at the back of the peloton, they still cannot save energy. They were not up on anyone, despite the fact that they were trying to lift and coast as much as possible in the early stages of that race. You could see. And then when the peloton effect finally split and the go moment went, they went off into the distance, leaving these ERTs behind. They could do nothing. Could do nothing at all. Nowhere near, nowhere close to points. So unfortunately for Sergio Sette Camara, it's been a tough few races for the ERT squad and Sette Camara in particular. After what has been a promising season, it's just all come tumbling away. I don't think they're going to find anything now to go into the rest of the season. They need to hope for a crazy race, and the fact that they score points and their main rivals don't. It's going to be a tough one. Going to be a tough one, but for now they're hanging on. They're hanging on to that P8 in the constructors, and they are holding on for dear life. There's a very small gap now. App look like they can pick up an odd 1 or 2 points here and there. With 4 rounds left, it could get dangerous and could get a little bit spicy. But yes, it is a middle row 5 to Sette Camara. Couldn't really do much more than that, but I think that's a fair score based on where they are. And there was always maybe a little bit more in it, but it just didn't go their way. 5 to Sette Camara. And behind Sette Camara, it is Lucas Di Grassi in the second of the App Cupras, and he's getting the middle of the row 5 as well. Tough weekend by the squad of Apps Cupra, Mahindra, and of course the ERT squad as well. Really suffering with powertrain inefficiencies, and just overall a shame. I think I was harsh with Lucas Di Grassi's score yesterday, only giving him 4. I know he inherited the points, and that kind of annoys me when people inherit the points, because you celebrate it like you've scored them, and you haven't. But today's race, it looked like, again, they pulled the pin early on the peloton effect, breaking free. These cars just couldn't keep up with that, and that's a great shame. So middle of the row 5 to Lucas Di Grassi, same as his teammate Muller. Didn't look like there was any point scoring opportunities coming their way at all this weekend. That's a great shame. Closing the gap up into ERT though now into just a couple of points. Let's see what happens in Portland. I think Apt could potentially leapfrog them now, but we'll wait and see. 5-2 De Grassi. Unfortunately, next up we come to Pascal Wehrlein, finishing a lonely position here, down here towards the back in P20. Had a puncture courtesy of Sam Bird hitting his rear left tyre, creating a puncture, and had to pit and had to do pretty much a whole lap on a flat tyre as well, which didn't help him. Almost got lapped at the end as well. It was a great shame. Obviously from that point on your race is effectively over. You have to hope for a safety car. Safety car didn't come, so he couldn't catch up to the back of the pack and try and do something. His championship title hopes certainly aren't all over yet, but it makes it that little bit more harder. 25 points behind Nick Cassidy, a full race win behind, which isn't impossible in Formula E standards. We know how crazy the racing can be. Drivers can win, others can be outside the points. So let's wait and see what happens. Makes it a little bit more difficult though, doesn't it, going into the last 4 races where, you know, Wehrlein needs to make sure he's popping it on pole, he's picking up the fastest lap points, and he is securing a spot on the podium as an absolute minimum to claw that gap back up to Nick Cassidy now, because we know Nick's consistent. Will he get the help from Jaguar? We'll wait and see, but for now, it's been a tough one. Been a real tough one for Wehrlein, and he's only getting a solitary 1 from me, and that's going to sound harsh, I know it is. It wasn't his fault he got the puncture, but a poor qualifying performance. Da Costa out-qualified him. He was stuck in the middle of the pack, and when you get stuck in the pack like this is what can happen, and that is what did happen to Wehrlein. So yeah, better qualifying. He could have avoided the idiots. He didn't do. And it's just 1 point to Pascal Wehrlein. Harsh, I will admit. I'm totally with that. It was harsh. It's not his fault, but at the same time, points were looking unlikely anyway. 1-2, Wehrlein. Next up, we come to Dan Tinktum, another one of the pitters. Unfortunately, he had a puncture this race. I think I said he had a puncture last race, but no, it was very much this one. He might have had a puncture in both, I don't know. But yeah, Dan Tinktum is getting 2 from me, and that's that. What a ridiculously bad season he has had. If he's not got pace, then he's crashing and creating his own dramas and problems, and if it's not him creating the dramas and problems, it's other people doing it for him. We don't know how he got the puncture, but obviously there was a lot of front wing damage and bits of debris on the track at certain stages, or it could have just been a nose-to-wheel contact like what we saw with Wehrlein that caused that puncture, and that is why he's down here ultimately. It's 2 points to Dan Tinktum. That's that. That's life. 2 races in a row where he has finished last of the runners in Shanghai. He'd have wanted to come to the ERT's home Grand Prix and do a lot better than that, and unfortunately he didn't do, and that's life, as they say. But Dan Tinktum, what a dismal season. 2 to him. And then last but by no means least, the only retirement in this race, it is Sam Bird. And there we have it, a lotterer of the week to Sam Bird, and it couldn't be for anyone else this race, could it? You look at that and you take a look at the drivers and think, yeah, some had poor performances like Tinktum again, like Daruvala, like Fenestraz, but no one deserved a lotterer more than Sam Bird, and I just wanted to emphasise the fact by only giving Sam Bird 1. What a ridiculous race he had. Poor qualifying in comparison to his teammate, made contact with Pascal Wehrlein giving him a puncture, and then absolutely harpooned the side of Nick de Vries, creating his own damage and taking himself out of the race, as well as knocking Nick de Vries outside the points, potentially affecting Robin Freitz's race as well, who had to cut across the grass to avoid an errant spinning Nick de Vries. Big shame. Unbelievable. Sam Bird, why did McLaren pick him up in the first place? Yes, he's had that 1 victory. We've seen an odd good race here and there from him before in Jaguar, and then he'll go and do silly mistakes and silly errors. This race was no exception, and he's lucky that he proper hit the side of De Vries, so he's lucky the wheel didn't snap and he hurt his wrist further. He's still not 100% with his wrist, but why would you go lunging it up the inside like that? It was just a desperate move, and it really was silly. So yes, it is a lotterer of the week to Sam Bird, and no one else this race, because he was the one that solely deserved it. So there we have it, guys. Those were the runners and riders of round number 2 here at Shanghai. The doubleheader comes to a close. Let me know down in the comments below, did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The updated standings with the scores I have just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is now. And wow, we've got someone breaking a century. Only just. Ollie Rowland takes it to 101. Nick Cassidy closing the gap though with 98. It's all to play for in this series. There's a lot lot of people still in with a mix with 4 rounds to go to take the overall Cruel Corner title, the one that really matters, of course. Who cares about the actual Formula E one, even if it is world champion accredited now? Yes, but overall, take a look at the standings, see where your favourite driver is. Is there any on this list that have really impressed you this season? Is there any that have really disappointed you and you expected them to do a lot more? Let me know in the comments down below as always. I'll look forward to chatting with you all there. A massive thanks as always goes out to Dan, formerly of Mushy Gaming, for providing me with the scoreboard that you see on your screen. Without him, this series would be more pointless than it already is. So there we have everything, guys. That is it. The doubleheader comes to a close. There's no Formula E now for a month, is there? I think that's what I'm right in saying, am I? I think I'm right in saying that. Yeah, unfortunately, it's now the end of June, isn't it, for Portland in America? So I look forward to seeing you all then. The championship's certainly hotting up, not just here, but also in real life as well. Thanks all for watching, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon. And as always, much love.